Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call our Suffolk City Council work session to order. Our first topic of discussion is the SIPSA waste disposal alternatives. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. With us this evening is Dennis Bagley, Executive Director of the Southeastern Public Service Authority. Mr. Bagley will provide City Council an update on SIPSA's current landfill capacities and considerations for future municipal waste handling. Dennis, good afternoon.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I want to first thank you for having me here this evening to brief you. It's always a pleasure to get to come before City Council and let the councils know exactly what we're doing, and I'm pleased to be here. I love to talk trash, and I'll try to keep this brief. First, I thought it would be appropriate before we get started just give you a real quick update on the flyover, the 1358 460 flyover. It went out for bid in January. Bids were due back March 15th, and we didn't get a single bid back, and I was extremely surprised. Once we got into this a little more, what we found out was that there's a lot of road projects going on, and the reason we didn't get any bids because people just didn't have the resources to bid on the project. But VDOT assured us that if they went back out for bid, they felt certain they were going to get some bids. So we went back out for bids, and on May the 22nd, those bids will be open, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to award a contract to construct the flyover by June. So if that is the case, then we would be looking at a June of 2026 completion date for traffic on that road. So we're excited about that. We know the issues there. Not only with trucks crossing over into SIPSA, but also those U-turns there. So we're excited about getting that project moving along. But what I'm here this evening to talk with you about is the solid waste plan and its past, its present, and its future. As most of you already are aware, because Suffolk played such a large part in the process of regional waste authority, there was issues back to 2018, and we entered into identical use and support agreements with all 8 member localities in 2018 to try to alleviate some of those problems. The use and support agreements were exactly the same for every community, meaning the SIPSA provided the same services to each individual community. They're scheduled to expire on June the 30th of 2027. Now, if none of the localities notify us in advance of that, the use and support agreements would roll over. But each member locality has the right to not renew with SIPSA if that's what they choose to do. In 2018, as a result of those new use and support agreements, SIPSA entered into a contract with Wheelabrator to take our waste there, and that waste would then be burned and turned into steam and electricity to power the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. The term of the waste disposal agreement and the individual use and support agreements with the communities were designed to expire at the same time. That contract with Wheelabrator was originally supposed to expire June of 2027. That was a great plan because the advantages of waste to energy are pretty apparent. SIPSA negotiated favorable disposal rates. We started that contract at $32 an hour, $32 a ton. 85% of the region's solid waste was being incinerated. The other 15% was being hauled to a private landfill where it was just an efficiency situation where we were close to the landfill. Why carry waste from Southampton County all the way to Portsmouth when we could use a landfill that was in Southampton County? So 85% of our waste was going there. Very little waste was going into the regional landfill. We received about 30% of the waste that we sent to the incinerator back at SIPSA in the form of ash. So they were about 70% efficient in reducing the waste. Small volume of waste that we received at the landfill enabled us to extend the life of the landfill tremendously. So we're taking 30% of all the waste there. If we'd have been taking 100%, you can imagine where we would be in terms of capacity. This diagram really is just a quick snapshot of kind of the flow chart of how waste works through the region. On the far left, the member communities, municipal waste, would come to one of our transfer stations. Your all's transfer station in Suffolk is located at the regional landfill. It goes from that transfer station, then it's determined where it's going to go. Some of that waste goes directly into the landfill, but a large percentage of that was going into the incinerator at the wheelbarrow plant. Private haulers also bring waste to our transfer stations. The difference in now and previous to 2018 was that private haulers pay for what it cost. If it cost us $50 to process their waste, then they pay us $50. Previously, they may have had a $42 fee just because of the dynamics of waste and how the cost for each of the individual transfer stations were. If you are taking, say the transfer station was capable of taking 100 tons a day and you're only bringing 75 tons a day, it costs the same to bring 75 tons a day as it does 100 tons a day, so you really want to get up to 100 tons. So what SIPS had done in the past was bring those tons in at a lower rate. But once 2018 came around, those rates were actually what it cost to process the waste. After it goes to the transfer stations, we sort that, and some of it, 15% of the waste would go to the regional landfill, and about 85% of the waste would go to either a private landfill or the wheelbarrow plant. And then once it went to the wheelbarrow plant, the ash from the incineration process would come back to the landfill in the form of ash. So the plan changed, and every good plan comes to an end. The Navy elected to construct a combined heat and power plant. This is a performance-based contract where a contractor comes in and says, we can build it and you can save enough money to pay for it. And due to national security issues, the Navy Yard decided this was a good move for them. So they did not renew their purchase agreement with Wheelbarrow past January of 2023. So what that means is that Wheelbarrow lost about $10 million in revenue, and no business can sustain a loss of $10 million in revenue. They were operating in the red again. The Navy eventually, after the mayor of this council, the mayor of the city of Portsmouth, and some of our elected officials got together with the Navy. We pushed back, and they extended the contract through June of 2024. But they were clear at that point they weren't going to go past June of 2024. So what Wheelbarrow then did was come back to SIPSA, and they said, yeah, we have a contract with you through 2027, but we're not going to operate at a loss of $10 million a year for that length of time. We're going to terminate your contract early. So what we had been planning on all along for capacity standpoint was to have landfill space through the construction of Cell 7 and then and keep right on moving along with the same plan we'd had for years. But once this occurred, that kind of put a kink in our plans. On December the 16th of 2022, Wheelbarrow had a large fire. That fire burnt the conveyor that runs the waste from one side of Victory Boulevard to the opposite side of Victory Boulevard where it goes into the incineration plant. The cost to repair that fire was about $8.5 million, and they elected that they were not going to put $8.5 million into a conveyor housing, only to operate for another year because they would never recover their cost. So what that meant was that they were only able to take 1,000 tons a day. And so as of December 16th of 2022, SIPSA began to take that additional 1,500 tons a day and put it in the landfill. None of our plans had planned to do that. So what's happened is our capacity has constantly gone down. So the impacts, the regional landfill began to accept that 1,000 tons a day. Really, it was a little more than that. It was probably about 1,250 tons because they really are not always able to take 1,000 tons a day. The volume that was equal to the commercial waste received is being diverted to a private landfill. So what we are putting into the regional landfill is not all of the waste of the region, it's only the municipal solid waste. Because all of the commercial waste, TFC, the Waste Management, and GFL, that's going to a private hauler, or through a private hauler to a private landfill. MSW from the member communities is being diverted to the regional landfill. The additional waste that's being diverted to the landfill is consuming airspace at a much, much greater rate than we had originally planned and had been part of our long-term planning. The use of this additional airspace, of course, has accelerated our need for additional capacity. Now, where we are, and we fly a drone over the landfill every other month, and every quarter we do an airspace analysis. And what that is we take the topography of the landfill from our drone, and we figure out how much space we have there, how much capacity, and we compare that to a drawing that was conceived at the beginning of the landfill that said this is how much capacity you're going to have in the end, and we deduct one from the other, and that gives us how much capacity we have left. Cells 5 and 6 is what we're working in currently. It's permitted, it's already permitted, we're using that space. It has 2,323,999 cubic yards remaining. This was as of January. The life expectancy is April through 2027. So in April of 2027, we will have no capacity left in cells 5 and 6. And if you'll remember, 1 through 4 is already closed. It's in post-closure. It's almost at the end of post-closure, we hope. Cell 7, which is permitted, has a conditional use permit, and we're building a flyover in order to be able to construct cell 7. It has 8,243,331 cubic yards, and that would give us capacity through 2037. But at this point, there is no more permitted airspace at the landfill. So we had already engaged our consultants and DEQ and the Army Corps about cells 8 and 9. That's not permitted currently. We're hoping to get some ruling on that in the June timeframe. But cells 8 and 9 would give us an additional 13,970,463 cubic yards and would give us life expectancy in the regional landfill through 2061. So as you can see, 2037 is right around the corner. And in our business, we say if you have needs within a 5-year period, you're in a crisis situation. So we've been really scurrying around trying to get the capacity that we need to be able to ensure that the region has waste disposal capacity for the next 20 years. The future of the regional landfill, this is an important topic to begin to talk about. The remaining space at the regional landfill is all wetlands, including cells 8 and 9. This was contemplated from the beginning of the landfill. Whoever purchased that knew at the time that the majority of the landfill was wet. When after 4 years, $3.2 million invested, we still have not got a permit to build on cells 8 and 9 because it's 109 acres of wetlands will be impacted for construction in the landfill. One of the things that has pushed back in the process of permitting cells 8 and 9 is cumulative impacts. And what cumulative impacts are is we also in our master plan show cells 10, 11, and 12. So if you reason that out, cells 8 and 9 get constructed. When they're complete, we'll be coming back to the Army Corps to get a permit to then build cells 10, 11, and 12. And that's considered cumulative impacts. And in order to get a permit, NEPA says that you have to consider cumulative impacts. So in order to overcome that obstacle, and it was an obstacle, and had we not done this as SIPSA, we probably wouldn't there'd be no chance of us getting a permit. We took the property that we had in cells 10, 11, and 12, and we agreed to put it in a preservation easement. So we would preserve it and never come back and ask for a landfill. And the reason I think that's really important is if you go back to the previous slide, that number right here, 2061, life expectancy of 8 and 9, 2061, that's what you have. That is the capacity we have for disposal in the region. And I will tell you that anyone who thinks that you're going to permit landfill in southeastern Virginia needs to go through what our staff has gone through and our board has gone through over the last 4 years. It is going to be nearly impossible. And that's why it was the right choice to make to put cells 10, 11, and 12 in a preservation easement so that we would be able to get cells 8, 9 completed. The reality is the future construction will be difficult, if not impossible, moving forward. And what we've done now is we've been able to at least have a really good chance of permitting cells 8 and 9. And we believe at SIPSA that we have got to find another way to dispose of our waste. It irritates me every morning I get up and I think about the fact that we put a man on the moon in about 3 years, but we can't find a way to dispose of our waste other than put it in the ground. Well, I don't buy into that. I think there's a lot of other things we can do. And our staff believes there's a lot of other things we can do. And that's kind of where we're headed and what a lot of tonight is really about. So what is our future? We've got to think differently. We've got to stop thinking that the regional landfill is the answer to all of our problems, because it's not. 2061 may sound like it's a long way away, but in my business, 2061 is right around the corner. And we've got to figure out a way to manage our waste now so that we can take what capacity we have at the regional landfill and be able to extend that over a longer period of time. Because when you go into negotiations for waste disposal, if you got a landfill in your back pocket, the person sitting across the table looks at you differently than if you don't have any other options there on the table. And we learned that with the Wheelabrator negotiations just in 2018. So, considerations for the next step. You know, there's a lot of things. Current state of recycling. You all have heard this, I'm sure. You've been brought to you the state of recycling, how much is being recycled, what the cost is. It's not a winning bet. We want to know what the region's waste was made up of, how much waste is in the region that we really can recycle. So we embarked on a waste characterization study to learn what was in the waste. And what we found was there's about 65% of the waste in the region can be recycled. So if you take 65% of the waste out of the 100%, at least 35% of the waste, and if you have 486,000 tons of municipal waste in the region, if you take 65% of that and recycle it, then that number becomes much smaller and you can manage and extend the life of the landfill. So that was an important piece of information. Public opinion, we know the public wants to recycle, and we think recycling is a part of the future, but it's the way we recycle that we think should be changed. Environmental factors, landfilling waste is lowest bar on the EPA and DEQ's waste hierarchy. That's the least favorable way to dispose of our waste. So we're looking at how do we move to a different bar on that waste hierarchy. There's a lot of new technologies out, and we've been investigating these technologies for 3 or 4 years now. What didn't work 3 years ago is working great now, so we think there are other options out there. Net system costs. We know this is a critical part to our member communities. If we can landfill and it costs you $65 a ton, but we can find another method of disposing of our waste that's more environmentally friendly, and it's $75 a ton, are the communities willing to go there? And that's kind of the conversation we're trying to get started. We're trying to have dialogue with member communities to find out what is it that they're looking for. Contract terms, and this is a big one. If someone's going to come in and produce a facility that will handle 486,000 tons a year, they're going to invest a lot of money. And nobody's going to loan them the money to invest for a project like that unless they have a sure source of waste to come to that facility. So we believe that when a consideration here is what is the term of the contract going to need to be? And then looking at MSW versus commercial waste, SIPSA has forever looked at MSW, municipal solid waste, what your citizens bring to us as one type of waste, and they've looked at commercial waste as a different type of waste. But what we've learned, especially through COVID, is that waste is waste. It doesn't matter whether it is commercial waste or municipal solid waste, because if you go to McDonald's and you buy a hamburger and you eat there and you throw the trash away, that's commercial waste. But if you take that hamburger home, throw the trash away at home, then it's municipal waste. It's all the same. And if the cost of municipal waste goes up, so does the cost of going out to dinner. So does the cost of buying goods and services, because someone has to pay for the waste. So I think it's something, that a conversation we have to have, what is municipal solid waste and commercial waste differently, and then how can we look at that all as one just being waste. What we did was we went back to our board and we suggested to our board that we go out for an RFP. Our board had a little pushback on it. They said, I think we need to do something, get some information first. At the beginning, I was not so much in favor of it. We've been gathering information for 3 years. But what I found out was once we did that and we got information back in, it was very helpful in our process as we began to evaluate what our next steps would be. So we were very pleased that we did the RFI. Then we took the information that we gained from the RFI and we went back to our RFP and we revised the RFP and we put an RFP out on the street. That RFP is due to close on May the 1st. Some of the key points of the RFP is we clearly outlined that landfilling does not qualify for this RFP. So if you want to come to us with a landfilling proposal, don't come to us. We're looking for an alternative waste disposal mechanism, something that is other than landfilling. Because it doesn't matter whether we're putting it in our landfill or we're taking it out to the Atlantic landfill in Waverly, we're still putting it in the ground, and we've got to be more environmentally understanding. We said that offerers shall have owned and operated reference facilities for a minimum of 3 years. This is a high bar because this is all new technologies out there. But what we found is there are a number of very good companies that have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience with sortation and other types of waste disposal. SIPSA will consider proposed interim solutions and overall ability of offers to design, develop, finance, construct, and operate long-term waste disposal solutions. And this is a mouthful of what's just been said, because no one can expect for us to have a company come in and immediately be able to handle 418,000 tons. That's a lot of waste. That's all the waste we produce in the region. So we've got to be able to let people get ramped up. There's a lot of discussion about multiple vendors, having multiple people doing things, multiple contracts. And then this last bullet is a 20-year term is contemplated, but a shorter and longer terms could be presented to us. But let me say this. If you're going to invest in the $250 million to $700 million range, and that's what our consultants say these prices could come back at, you're not going to be able to do it for less than 20 years. If let's just say the price was $75 a ton for 20 years, if you break that down to a 10-year contract, it would stand to reason that the price is going to be $150 a ton. Well, we can't pay $150 a ton. So I think 20 years is probably the number that we're looking at. And why is that important? Well, that's important because what I want you to take away from today is that if we invest $250, or if a company invests as little as $250 million, they're going to want to make sure that they have waste coming to that facility to be able to pay off that debt over a period of time. And that period of time looks like it's in the 20-year range. So we've got to be prepared to look at a 20-year agreement with SIPSA to be able to manage the waste for the region. And I can tell you that I'm very proud of SIPSA. We've come a long way from where we were 10, 15 years ago. We are well respected. We just recently entertained a group of Turkish waste ambassadors that came here, and an engineering firm thought that we were the gold standard. So they brought them to us to look at what we were doing, because these engineers were working with some third world countries where they don't know how to landfill, and landfills collapse. They brought them to us, and the reason they brought them to us is because we do a good job at what we do. And I don't want to get off topic too much, but I invite any of you to give me a call, and I'll be glad to take you on a tour of our landfill. I'm proud of it. If I'd have thought back 30 years ago that today I'd be standing before you talking about waste and trash, I'd have told you somebody that they bumped their head. But I truly love trash, and I love waste, and I love what we do, and I'm proud of what we do, and we do it well. And I want to get that message out. So anyone who likes to visit the landfill, come on. Councilman Bennett there, we've talked many times, haven't we? And we are proud, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. The current use and support agreements expire in 2027. If one of these contractors come to us and they say we want a 20-year term, our current use and support agreement is going to expire prior to the 20 years. So we would be needing to come back to each one of our member communities and try to renew our use and support agreements, so that we would be able to say to them, yes, we will bring you your trash, or our trash, to you to operate your facility for that 20-year period. Simply like we were requesting, each of you at some point, again, May the 1st is the deadline, but we want to get out in front of this, and we want to have this conversation with you all individually as councils, and answer any questions you might have. But we likely will be coming back to you shortly after May with some type of information regarding what we got in the RFPs and what that might mean in terms of extending the use of support agreements past 2027. Here is just a tentative schedule for our process that we're going through. Again, we're looking at a year process of going through a year to get this off the ground. We would hope that it would come quicker than that, but we want to make sure that we don't miss anything, that we dot all of our I's, we cross all of our T's. So sometime around May of 2025 is when we would look to ink a contract if we find one that's suitable for the region. And with that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have, or a discussion about anything having to do with waste.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Council, questions or comments? Councilman Rector?
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. I'm looking at my own household, and there are only two of us, and sometimes I'm amazed at the amount of waste that the two of us can generate. But I would like to go back to one of your comments about the recycling, and you said that 65% of what gets handled could be recycled, but I thought one of the issues with the recycling was they go to these recycling places, and because of what people are choosing to recycle, a lot of it ends up coming back to you guys. So can you help me square that?
Yes, sir, I can. All of the vendors, and what we went out looking for was a vendor who would sort mixed waste, meaning that you wouldn't have a blue can and a green can, or whatever color your city puts out. You wouldn't have two different cans. You put all of your waste in one can, and it goes through a process. It's a large conveyor, has AI attached to it, it has cameras, and it's taking pictures, and it's pulling out the recyclables of all the waste. See, currently, the way the recycling system works, and I'm sure you're well aware of this, but everybody gets a can, and a handful of people in the city actually utilize those cans for recycling. So if you got 100, just say you have 100 citizens and 20 of them recycle out of the 100, then you're getting 20% participation in your recycling. And then of those 20%, some of them don't know how to recycle, so they're putting the wrong things in there. So you either have contaminated recycling, or you have recycling that has mixed waste in it. What we are looking for is someone who's going to take all of the waste, bring it in, pull the plastics to paper, textiles, anything that can be recycled would be pulled out, and then the organics would come out, and the organics would be turned into what, there's a lot of process you can have. Char is probably the most popular. It takes it and removes oxygen from it and turns it into this black soil additive material. It's very, very popular. It's used in a lot of different operations. That would be what they would do with the organics, but all of the plastics they'd be recycling just like you're recycling now. And the difference here is that instead of having 20% of the citizens that are participating, you're participating and you don't even know it. Every can gets sorted. And there would need to be, and there has been proof that this can happen, some requirement in the contract that we're going to recycle 55 or 65 or 60% of the waste, whatever you can negotiate out in the contract. So that's all you would pay for is the difference in what they say they can recycle and what you actually do recycle. So our recycling rate would go up in terms of the numbers of houses to 100% from 20%, and the amount of waste that would be recycled in each one of those cans would also go up because of the process that's being used. So the recycling still would be there, but the citizens would not have to sort it at home before truck. And another thing that does is from a greenhouse gas standpoint, you don't have as many trucks coming down the road. I mean, it's always puzzled me, and I came from the collection side before I came to work with SIPSA, and we'd run 3 trucks down the road. We'd run the recycle truck, we'd run the municipal solid waste truck, we'd run a roll-off truck down, and sometimes we'd even run cardboard trucks down. That's 4 trucks down the same route. This brings it down to one truck for all of the waste, with the exception of any bulk waste you might pick up. And that would typically be done through a call-in service. So I hope that helps.
Yes, sir. That was very informative. Thank you very much.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, I've got a few comments or questions, or a little bit of both. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts here. It's kind of, I don't really know what direction we're going. It doesn't sound like we really know what direction we're going. Do you get some more information? I mean, obviously, we're going to be okay through 2037 with cell 7 open, but 8 and 9 we still haven't permitted yet. And a lot of that is contingent on the obtaining some wetlands around it for the conservation end of it. And then we as a council would have to approve a conditional use permit for it, I believe, for that to happen also. But I'm trying to wrap my arms around the alternatives. So it sounds to me, if I'm listening to you correctly, then we put out a search for another entity that is willing to accept our trash at a particular dollar, and does it, at that point, does SIPSA become a big transfer station and everyone still brings it to SIPSA and it's picked up there? I know in 2018, 17, sometime around there was a lot of discussion about SIPSA, and I know we as a city, and Robert can probably address this too, but I think we as a city were looking at different options, and that was creating some transfer stations for ourselves and sending trash to other locations. So is that kind of it? We're going to try to find someone who would actually take trash that is now going into the landfill and be able to process it at a reasonable price. Is that?
To some degree, that is correct. But remember, we were already doing that with Wheelabrator. We're
Right.
trying to have someone take the place of what Wheelabrator was doing. We still would operate the regional landfill because in any type of waste sortation, there's going to be residual, and that residual has to go somewhere. That would be the difference in what they're able to pull out and what's remaining. And there's going to be what's called non-processable waste. It would have to have a place to go. But by using a company to do something different with our waste and recycle it, then it would extend the life of the landfill. So the landfill would still operate just like it does, and the transfer stations would operate just like they do, because transfer stations are an integral part of our waste management system here in the region. Because let's just consider a collection truck that is at Virginia Beach on the ocean front, and they have a rule they have to be out of there. I think it's by 10 o'clock. Is that right, Henry? Have to be off of the ocean front by 10 o'clock. if they had to bring their waste all the way back to the regional landfill and dump it, they'd have so many trucks down there in the morning, it would just completely change the way and the cost of doing business. So our transfer stations are strategically placed across the region, and they bring that waste to us, and then they can get right back on their route again. The most inefficient part of waste is the time that you're off the route. So our transfer stations across the region give them the opportunity to do that, and then we haul larger amounts to wherever it's going to go. And yes, some of those transfer stations all of their transfer stations would continue to operate, but some of them would likely go to the landfill. Some of them would go to these contractors who would bid on this work, and some of them even could go to private haulers or go to private landfills through private haulers, especially the contract waste. So I think you have the right concept, but just the volume of waste going to the landfill will still be there.
So the key would be to find an alternative source to Wheelabrator. So regardless, all that waste doesn't end up in our landfill.
That's correct.
Just a piece of it, and be able to do it in such in a cost-effective way. Okay, we got a lot of work to do.
Yes, sir. And again, what we wanted to do was make sure this didn't get thrown on the member localities at the last minute. I mean, this is the very beginning of the process, and we got a lot of work to do. We're excited about May the 1st. After May the 1st, we'll be coming back to the city manager requesting an opportunity to talk about what we found in our RFPs, and we want to keep you abreast as to what's going on throughout this whole entire process.
And I got one other question for you. I know the contract expires in '27, so how much advance notice is there if a member does not want to participate, and how's that going to affect?
18 months.
Say again?
18 months.
18 months, so we're getting pretty close. Okay. So, and I guess obviously that would affect the business model significantly.
Absolutely.
Other localities chose not to participate, but I believe at the same time we were looking, everybody else was looking at an alternative also. So it's just a.
That's correct. 18 months, and it would if you're not interested in changing, if you're satisfied with the service you're receiving, then you don't have to do anything. But if you are interested in getting out of SIPSA, you have to notify SIPSA 18 months in advance.
Okay, so at least you know what you're doing with a year and a half out.
That's correct.
Okay, Councilman Bennett.
Mayor, that was, you asked the same question that I had on mine that I forgot, I had checked it off to ask. But that was my concern, that how much is the rates gonna go up if one or two, I know Virginia Beach one time was really looking at not participating in SIPs any longer. So I'm looking at, and you might not be able to answer the question, but I'm looking at the rates that it might increase from what we are paying now if one or two localities drop out.
I'm not going to go on record saying, giving a rate like that, but what I can tell you is the operation of SIPS is based on, and we just had this conversation today, like commercial waste. If we had lost commercial waste, we would eliminate that portion of our contract to bring our costs down to match what revenue is. We operate just like a business. So what we would attempt to do is to lower our operating cost to match the revenue that we're bringing in, because that's what we have to do, because we do operate as a business. So I'm not going to say that the rates are going to go up, because I don't think that's you wouldn't be able to keep the remainder of your customers. So we have a very flexible business model, and that business model would hold true, I believe, very close to where we are. It could get to a point where you couldn't do that, but we don't anticipate a large number of exit from SIPSA. We've done a good job. We do a good job, and we do it at a very reasonable price. Matter of fact, we're taking on commercial contracts all the time because we do it at the right price, and we do a good job at it. So I think the member localities really take a serious look at the service that we provide, the quality of customer service that we provide, the rates that we charge. They'll find that we provide a service that they probably do not want to go away from. The other thing is, anytime an individual locality goes out for a bid, your volume of waste goes down, so your cost goes up. If you're asking for somebody to give you a price on 480,000 tons of waste versus 40,000 tons of waste, you're going to get a much better price on the 480,000 tons. And SIPSA has the horsepower with the trucks. So there's a lot of reasons why we don't believe that there's going to be a large exit of folks, because we don't believe that we work hard to try to keep our rates reasonable and down earth. One of the things right now, we're building our reserves up in order to pay for this flyover and construction. I just handed out today our long-term projections for waste costs, and they go down, and they get down to $55 a ton. There's no one can take your waste for $55 a ton.
Okay, that was my
That's-
concern with the debt overhead debt you have for the flyover and all. In order to pay that debt, the rates, I don't know how the rate could hardly stay.
Well,
They are
that's
without-
another important thing about that, Councilman, is that SIPSA has no debt now. We're debt-free. We're cash funding everything we
Okay.
do. That's the reason why our tip fee currently, or this coming up in FY 2025, is going to be $65 a ton, because there's about a $7 surcharge in order to pay for the flyover. So we have the money in reserves to pay for it when it's built, and that was a $40 million project. So I think it's important to understand that we do not have debt now.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Councilman Fawcett?
Yes, sir. I want to thank you first for coming out and giving quite an informative presentation. My question would be on the Wheelabrator side, because we know Wheelabrator had some issues with what you indicated with that fire that pretty much destroyed things. And beside the point, the Navy was moving in a different direction anyway. We knew that was coming. With that being said, how much of your MSW are we taking now, because you don't have that capability to burn, but if you're burning anything, it's not the quantities we were burning, correct? When Wheelabrator was at full operation. So that waste has got to be coming to that landfill at this point. And I want to applaud you for trying to find another alternative to this waste. The concept you were talking about, we're picking off certain things and certain things are recyclable. And I know the recyclable world has their little issues with quantities and how they get rid of it. But I'm just curious, so right now, being that Wheelabrator is not operating, so that stuff's got to be coming full force to you at the landfill.
Well, Wheelabrator is operating at very much reduced capacity. What they told us that they were not going to operate after the fire in December, and we sat down with them and said, wait a minute, if you can take 100 tons, that's 100 tons we don't take to the landfill. We need you to take whatever you can take. So what they did was, they said, we can haul waste from the refuse-derived fuel plant, which is on one side of Victory Boulevard. It went under the Victory Boulevard, up an escalator, and into a pit. They said, we can take a truck, and we can load what we can load, and we can haul it across the street and dump it in the pit and continue to burn our boilers. But we can only take 1,000 tons a day. So we revised our contract with them so that they would take 1,000 tons a day under revisions of the contract, but they aren't always able to take 1,000 tons a day. Traffic would be backed up on the tip floor. But we're still of the mindset that 800 tons a day or 900 tons a day is better than no tons a day, because that's waste that we're not putting in the landfill. So we're doing everything we can to minimize what we're putting in the landfill, and that is to continue the Wheelabrator contract as long as we can, even with a smaller amount of waste. But you're absolutely right. All of the waste that was going there that's not being burned currently, which is about 1,300, 1,400 tons a day, is coming to the landfill. We do try to divert some of that to a private landfill, because we're trying to continue to build additional capacity that we would have available past April of 2027. But it's a constant challenge, but we are doing that.
So they're still giving you some ash, though, correct? From the
Yes, sir.
burn-off.
But it's a very minimal
But
amount.
it's very small.
We're getting probably, our operations director is here, Henry Strickland. We're probably getting about maybe 30% of the ash that we were getting before. So it's very little, very little.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate the information. Our next item on our work session agenda is the Downtown Advisory Committee update. Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, Deputy City Manager Kevin Hughes will present the update on the proposed Downtown Advisory Committee. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I guess it was about 2 months ago, Dina Holt provided you with an update on all things downtown. Really, the driver on moving downtown has been the master plan. One of those things that we talked about that we wanted to bring back to you was some consideration regarding a advisory committee. And so I'll walk you through what we're proposing and what's in your package. So just to again, refer back to the master plan. Here's a quote that was in towards the ending period that had some recommendation, and it said, Suffolk needs a full-time downtown organization to cement partnerships, be responsible for the plan's implementation, and to manage downtown for the benefit of the entire community. Without an organization, the plan will have difficulty achieving its potential. And so one of the reasons we're here talking about this item. I'll walk you through what's in your ordinance this evening for consideration. I'll talk about the details within that, as well as a modification that's at your place as well versus what was in the package. And so what you'll see in the ordinance is really what the committee would try to accomplish. And so 4 goals here: to promote economic viability of downtown, and try to enhance and bring in activities and businesses. At the request of City Council, they'd recommend policies for the city to consider that, in the opinion of the committee, would enhance downtown activities, support and help address the new challenges facing downtown, as well as help and support preserve the heritage of the city's downtown. The makeup is proposed to include 11 representatives. That would be 1 from arts and culture, 1 from culinary and restaurant, 1 from retail, 1 professional. The ordinance defines this, and I've got some parentheses here that talk about certified accountant, architect, banker, civil engineer, hospitality to include hotel, bed and breakfast, or special events operator, 1 in real estate, so that'd be an agent or a developer. 2, that would be downtown resident property owners. I've got the influence area noted here. The next slide, I'll talk about that a little bit further. And then 3, at-large members. We know that there are folks in our community that have interest in our downtown, or maybe bring some other experience that would come to bear, that maybe don't live downtown or match some of these other identifiers. You know, we're a city of 100,000 people, and so we know we've got plenty of resources out there. And then additionally, you'd have representation from the city manager or his designee. And then, and this is the slight modification in your ordinance. We've got the Suffolk Borough representative. We're also including the Whaleyville Borough representative. If they don't want to serve or are unable to, the mayor would appoint the liaison. And so to get into a touch further, I mentioned the influence area. This map is in the downtown master plan. So in the red is what is noted as your downtown core according to the adopted master plan, downtown master plan. And then the black dotted line that goes out to the river and heads down Carolina Road towards Suffolk Industrial Park, that is the influence area. So this is a map that exists in your adopted downtown master plan. We'd like to use this in reference to those that live in the downtown area. It also tells you why we've got not just the downtown, but the Whaleyville representative as well. So next steps, as I mentioned, and as you were well aware, there's a ordinance for your consideration on your regular session. Additionally, there's been a little bit of conversation about how to go about identifying folks to serve on this. And so for consideration, maybe something for discussion in new business, if you wanted to have staff work on a process to have folks submit information that meets some of the parameters in here. Myself and the Director of Media and Community Relations have already talked about a potential way to do that and some outreach to ensure that we can get the word out in order to collect that information. We think we're prepared to handle that task. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hughes. Council, questions or comments? Councilman Rector.
Thank you, Kevin, for that presentation. 2018 to 2024 is a decent amount of time, but thank you for putting this ordinance together. I think it's a much-needed group. The downtown, and probably a whole lot has changed even since 2018, but the downtown has become a hugely diverse place. You got businesses of all types. You got folks of all types that are living in the downtown area. So I like the spread of people that you have that you're considering for this committee. I don't think there's going to be any shortage of applicants, at least on the first go round, because the people I've had, I can't tell you how many people have approached me and said that they've heard that this is being put together. Can I be a part of it, and how can I be a part of it? So I just want to thank you for that, and look forward to seeing the machinations of it be put in motion. So thank you again.
Councilman Bennett?
Thank you. Kevin, how is it going to work with the appointments to this board? Is it going to be brought back to council for approval? And then is there going to be an application wherein that people can now request to be on this board? And then you look at that and eliminate some way of elimination? Because you put it out there, I know the number is 10, but if you say, well, we want some people to send some applications in, you look at that and say, well, okay, this fit, that doesn't fit. So how are we going to work the process of doing that?
City Attorney?
If I may, I can answer that question.
Okay.
So if City Council passes the ordinance that creates this board, it would be another council board. So absent City Council doing anything else, everyone would be appointed the same as you do for every other board. Currently, the City of Suffolk does not have an application process for appointments to its boards and commissions. So to do something different than how we normally do it, you would need to have some type of resolution adopted that it sets out the application process and the selection process. Otherwise, this board gets appointed just like every other board.
Okay, and that's some of my concern, because there, just like Councilman Rector said, I've had people that has property and whatnot, family properties in the area, is questioned, about serving. So I'm sure there's going to be different ones that going to want to come if you say we're going to select. And I see what you're saying, what area you'll be selecting from. So just something I'm throwing out there, because it's something that I don't know how many others will get some comments from it, but I have gotten some already.
If I could just interject something, this committee is a little different because, well, there's 11 people on it, which is a really good-sized committee, and we're just now forming it. And taking into consideration, we probably will have a fairly good amount of individuals that are interested in serving. Then I envision the application process in that if you're interested in serving on the committee, you would provide some information, a brief bio, and then if you qualify as one of the specific individuals that we're asking for, be it a restaurant owner, a downtown resident, then we, and if not, then we still have the at-large members, 3 at-large members as well. So to your point as to whether council would approve it, I envision that, and this is just me talking, I envision that once these applications come back, then Mr. Hughes, the manager, and his staff, I mean, they're kind of familiar with what's going on, can kind of plug certain folks into certain holes if they qualify, and then maybe fill out a sheet of possibly recommended, or at least a starting point. And then we would look at them, we would have that in council, the same way we normally do in closed session to consider it, but we would also have a copy of every application that came in, every single application. So then at that point, everybody could review it, and then hopefully we could talk about it and come up with a consensus to get it formed initially. Then once that happens, then it's the normal process. One person gets off and you make a recommendation to put somebody on. But because it is new, and unlike a lot of the other committees, I mean, some of the committees do have specific skill sets that have to go on there, but this one is probably more so than others. But I understand exactly what you're saying. We want everybody that's interested to be able to fill out an application and kick it off that way. So maybe that
I think that's fair.
explains it a little bit.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Ward.
Yes, my concern is the at-large members. Are you with the 3 at-large members, I think they still have to be in the map, but are you going to add, you got 1 arts and cultural, you want be 2 arts and culturals, or you just gonna add on to specifics you want, the at-large members?
The at-large members do not have to be represented within that map. They could live in your borough.
Right, that's my concern, okay. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of what the at-large is for. So say you have 2 restaurant owners that want to be on there.
Right.
We don't want to be able to just have one hole to plug one in. The second restaurant owner may be a very good addition to the committee, so one would fill the restaurant owner slot, and then the other one could be appointed as an at-large, as well as anyone else that you'd like to put on the committee. But I'm glad we're at this point. To allude to what Councilman Rector said, I think the timing is perfect. I mean, we just did a groundbreaking for a library. We got a festival site going on. We got a lot of interest in downtown. So I don't think there's a better time to get this committee up and rolling. And I know some folks have put a lot of time and effort into it already, even without us having a committee. So we will have a formal way to engage the public, and that information come to us so we can make changes or act on whatever suggestions we get. Councilman Williams.
Yes, Mayor. Kevin, well, my question is, how will the term limit be established for this particular board?
So in your ordinance, it identifies and details that very specifically. If you hadn't had a chance to look at it.
2 years, except for the first.
So it,
Yeah.
terms for members other than the city manager or his designee shall be for 2 years. The 3 at-large members and the 2 downtown resident members will serve an initial 1-year term, and the remaining 6 members will serve 2-year terms following the expiration of the initial terms of the 3 at-large members and 2 resident members. These members will therefore be appointed to 2-year terms. So I think the idea is to stagger some of this so you can continue to have folks serving as folks may time off.
All right.
But it's in the ordinance.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Hughes. That concludes our work session. We do have a need for a closed session this evening. Madam Clerk, will you please read the motion for consideration?
Item number 1, pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711, A8 and A1, the consultation with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the legal advice of such counsel, and the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for appointment, and the assignment, appointment, and performance of specific public officers or appointees of the city, specifically the appointments as shown on the attached list for vacancies or term expirations for the Agricultural Advisory Committee, the Community Policy and Management Team, the Early Childhood Development Commission, the Fine Arts Commission, the Human Services Advisory Board, the Local Board of Building Code Appeals, the Sister Cities Commission, the Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, the Tidewater Youth Services Commission, and specifically the performance and salaries of the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, and the city assessor.
Council, a motion has been presented for consideration. Councilman Rector,
So moved.
got a motion for approval from Councilman Rector. Councilman Williams,
Second, Mayor.
second from Councilman Williams. There's any discussion of the motion. Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 8 to 0.
This meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m.